Hello, my amazing Algebra Half students. This is Mrs. A, and I love math. And today we are working in your blue book on lesson 39. And I just discovered that the blue books that I'm talking about are not all the same edition. So, just so you know, the edition of blue book that I'm using is edition 2. I believe I'm looking right now. Yes, so I'm in the second edition. If you have the third edition, your lessons may be the same but not numbered exactly the same as mine. So you might have to do a little bit of work to figure out which lesson I'm talking about. But in the second edition blue book, this is lesson 39. So we're talking about equations, answers, and solutions. And we always like answers and solutions to our problems, don't we? Okay, so let's look at a little definition. When we connect two meaningful expressions with an equal sign, then we call that an equation. And equations can be true or equations can be false. If we look at 4 plus 2 is 6, we say, yes, that's true. So that would be a true equation. If we say 4 plus 2 is 3, we would say, no, that is not true. So that would be a false equation. Not every equation has to be true. Okay, so let's look at this one here. Now, this looks a little different. We don't have just numbers in here. We have a variable. And since we don't know what the variable is, we call this a conditional equation. If we replace it with something that makes the statement true, then it will be a true equation. And the number that replaces it will be called the solution. But if we replace it with something that's false, then it would be a false equation. But right now, it's a conditional equation because we don't know what x is. If a value causes the equation to be true, then we call that value a solution to the equation. So now we're going to play with these solutions a little bit. This is a very short lesson. We have x plus 4 is 10. This is your first example. Well, our goal when we're trying to solve an equation is to find out what x is going to be. So we will do that using our addition property of equality, which allows us to add or subtract the same thing from both sides. So we are going to get rid of this 4 because I know that if I have a 4, taking away a 4 will get rid of it. And then if I take away a 4 from this side, I must come over here and take away a 4 from the other side to obey all the algebra rules. So now this x comes down, and then this 4 and negative 4 cancel. And then on the other side of the equal sign, I have 10 minus 4 is 6. Therefore, x must be 6. Now, let's go back into the original problem and see if 6 makes the original equation true. So 6 plus 4 is 10. When we plug a 6 here for the x, 6 plus 4 is 10. Therefore, this is a true solution to the equation. Okay, so the next one, x minus 4 is 10. Okay, now that sounds very familiar. This one was x plus 4. This one is x minus 4. Probably not going to be the same solution, right? So here we have a minus 4. Well, to get rid of a minus 4, we need to add a 4 because remember, additive opposites are plus and minus of the same number, and they get rid of each other, don't they? So to get rid of a negative 4, we add a 4, which means we must add over a 4 to the other one. I used to have a math teacher, and I loved her very much. Her name was Mrs. Almond. Yeah, like the nut. And Mrs. Almond would always say, when you're thinking about equations, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And whatever you did to the left-hand side, you must do the right-hand side. And I've always had Mrs. Almond as kind of, someday I'm going to be a teacher like Mrs. Almond because I thought she was just grand. She was very short. And so when she was teaching me, she would climb up on a chair and she would sing songs to us. And I just loved it because I was in high school in advanced math. And here was my little short teacher up on top of a chair singing songs. It was precious. Okay, so -4 plus 4. And then we add the plus 4 over here. So this is going to cancel, isn't it? So we're going to have x equals 10 plus 4. So now we have a solution. But let's make sure it's a solution. Let's take the 14 and plug it right in here for the x. 14 take away 4 is 10. Therefore, our solution is a true solution. And let's look at another one. Now this one is your first practice problem. So copy it down on your board and then pause your video. Okay, hopefully you did that. So now we're going to subtract a 6 from both sides. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. X cancel. 12 minus 6 is 6. So let's substitute the 6 back up here for the x. 6 plus 6 is 12. That is true. And so we have our true solution. Okay, we have another practice. X minus 6. The other one was x plus 6. Now we have x minus 6. So copy this down and then pause your video. All right, so we're going to do the opposite of the -6. We're trying to always get the x by itself. So we add a 6 and we add a 6 over here. We cancel and we get x all by itself. 12 plus 6 is 18. So we think the answer to this equation is 18. Let's plug in the 18 right back here where x was. 18 take away 6 is 12. So we have the last one there. Now I've got one more of your practice problems, and we're going to just go ahead and do this right here. X minus 14 equals 6. Go ahead and write that on your board and then pause your video. Did you do it? All right, so now since we are trying to get the x by itself, we add the 14 and we add the 14. And now we have x, cancel, 10. X is 10. Let's go check. 10 goes where the x was. 10 minus 4. Oopsie. You know what I did wrong. I didn't add the 14. That should have been a 20. I bet you caught that at home and you didn't say anything. Okay, so 6 plus 14 is 20. So now we're going to make this 20. And 20 take away 14 is 6. And that is true. So 20 is the real solution. And Mrs. A made a boo-boo. But you know what? Even Mrs. Almond made boo-boos sometimes. We all make boo-boos. But the big thing is, can we correct our mistakes and get it right the second time? And that's the right answer now. And we're done with this lesson. So this is Mrs. A. And may God bless your day.